Looking for a car dealer that actually feels like your hometown? Welcome to City Chevrolet of Grayslake, where the vibe is friendly, the pressure is off, and you'll always be treated like family. Meet Anthony Scala. He's just not the owner. He's a guy that grew up in the car business, worked his way from porter to owner. Anthony believes in people first. That's why City Chevy sponsors your kids' teams, your town events. And matter of fact, this show, they give back every chance they get. Anthony thinks that the experience of buying a car should be fun. No pressure, just honest people who care. Whether you need a new Chevy, a quality used car, or just service you can trust, City Chevy is here for you. Come visit City Chevrolet of Grayslake right off of 120. And thank you for sponsoring our town, our stories, our voice. Let's get after it, Grayslake. Grayslake Rehabilitation Center is a community-based private practice physical therapy provider. Do you know they have 13 clinical providers with various levels of specialties, including orthopedics, sports, neurology, vestibular, geriatrics, pelvic floor, and aquatic? What? Did I just say they have a pool? Well, they do, and it's the largest indoor warm water pool in Lake County, featuring 2 underwater treadmills and swim currents. And recently added clinical treatment specialties, in layman's terms, shockwave. They have both radial and focus units that are the newest tool in regenerative medicine, available to everyone. They pride themselves on the most current and up-to-date specialized care to keep you moving. If you're looking for physical therapy, make sure to see our friends at Grayslake Rehabilitation. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Discovering Grayslake. We're sitting here. This is our first episode I'm recording after 2 years of doing this, which is really weird. It's been 2 years. But today I'm sitting with Jeff Myhra, the Chief of Police in Grayslake. Jeff, how are you, buddy?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to have you. It's fun when we were just discussing before we hit record, like what a wonderful town that we actually live in, because we live in a very unique place on Earth.
Yeah, Grayslake is awesome. I don't personally live here, but Grayslake is awesome. It's just a fantastic place to be.
Yeah.
I do consider it home because I spend so much time here at work. But
probably spend more time in Grayslake than at home, right?
Most likely do. Probably at least half of my life. So
wow,
it's a special place to me, and it's where I started out. And it's where I'm going to end up. So, yeah.
Nice. All right, before we jump into that, I want to cover a couple things, because one of the big reasons that when I reached out to you, because I hear nothing but great things about you. We're going to verify those today. He has hooked up to a lie detector test today, by the way, during the whole episode. But I think it's really cool because of the community that we live in, to not, I guess humanize is a bad word, but like, if you live in town, you're listening to this episode, like, wow, I feel honored. I get to sit down with the chief of police because you are in charge of a lot of things that make our town safe, a good place to live. So it's going to be a pleasure getting to know you just a little bit better.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So let's do this. First of all, let's go back. Little boy, did you grow up wanting to be a police officer?
Oh, since the beginning of time.
Really?
A funny story about that, like my grandparents were immigrants from Norway. And when they came, they settled up in northern Minnesota, and my dad would take us up there for a couple of weeks in the summertime, and we would go up there. And my grandmother's thing is she would always ask me, what do you want to do in life? What do you want to be? It was almost like she was always trying to get me on the right path, and she would say, you want to be a doctor? No, not really. It sounds like it's pretty difficult. Going to take a lot of schooling. I don't think I want to do that. Well, one time she asked me, would you want to be a police officer? And I said, that sounds like something that I would really enjoy doing. So, come back. I grew up in Ingleside, and I went to Big Hall grade school at the time.
Yeah.
And they had a Fox Lake police officer actually that came into our school and did a career day for us. And he was a police officer and a part-time fireman at the time. So he had gone through careers about being police officer, being fireman, and I just fell in love with the job since then.
Sold.
My entire life from that point forward was just nothing but getting into that career and being a policeman and, doing everything ethically and morally the right way. And I was just focused from that point on. And that's how I ended up there.
That's awesome.
Which, at the age of 18, I went into the military. I didn't have a whole lot of money for school to go to college, so I decided the easiest way for me to get some college education was to go to school. So the GI Bill was on the table. The state of Illinois
smart.
paid for some of the state universities. So I said, I'll go in. I went in the Army for 3 years and came back and got my college education. I went to CLC and got my 2-year degree in a year.
Nice.
Yeah.
You knew what you wanted to do.
I was on the right path. I've never wavered. Even in the military, I always told them, I said, I'm here for 3 years. I was in the infantry. And I would always tell them, I'm like, I'm going back home to be a policeman. That's what I want to do. And I was a smaller guy at the time. I really did not get bigger until later in life. And I'm not even really that big anymore right now. But back then, they would always tell me, they were like, how are you going to be a policeman? You're such a little guy. I said, you don't worry about it. I'll get that taken care of. But,
right.
Yeah, that was the goal, and I just made it happen.
Wow. Okay, so after that, where do you get your first job at?
Well, when I came back here, I was actually opened up I had a lot of background in customer service.
Okay.
That was really, if you remember, growing up here, we had a really, and I'm talking about the old Kmart in Round Lake Beach, not the one that's closed down now. I'm talking about the other one that was near the Pep Boys. I used to work there.
Really?
So we're going way, way back in the day.
Yeah.
That's really where I started out working.
We must be about the same age.
Yeah. I mean, I started working at 14 years old. Not there, but I mean, when I was 16, I was working at the Kmart, and so I had a lot of customer service background. When I came back from the Army, of course, I needed a full-time job. I opened up the Menards store in Fox Lake, and I was working there for a long period of time while I was getting my degree at the same time.
Wow.
So I had a lot of background in customer service. That's, some of the... You
still are in customer service.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
That's, honestly, to be completely honest with you, Dave, that's what I bring to the table.
Yeah.
I always have. I always will.
Yeah, that's great. And it's fun to hear that you say that from a background, too, because you have to be good with people, right? You have to be able to communicate, and you have to be able to probably, that's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Yeah, for sure.
To be able to listen to people.
Policemen, I don't think, when you talk about customer service, I don't think they always appreciate the word customer. I throw it out there all the time, but that is what we do. Sure. That is 100% of what we do. We service the public. We provide them with good customer service, and that's what this job is all about, honestly.
1 minute, your world is normal. The next, it's gone. A flood, a fire, a crime scene. Your home shattered. Your business shut down. Your life on pause. But in the darkest hour, when chaos knocks at your door, that's when Serve Pro of Northwest Lake County shows up. Not just a company, not just a cleanup crew, but neighbors, parents, coaches, locals who care. Drake and his team aren't just restoring properties. They're restoring peace, restoring dignity, restoring lives. So when your worst day arrives, call the Oh No guy, who becomes your Thank God guy. Serve Pro of Northwest Lake County. Locally owned, nationally known, unshakably trusted. From devastation to restoration. Serve Pro, Northwest Lake County.
Hey neighbors, this is Bill Mock with the Grayslake Chamber of Commerce. And if you're looking for a network of hard-working, customer-focused, and generally friendly local businesses who are dedicated to helping each other succeed, then I'd like to invite you to check out and consider joining our Grayslake Chamber. We offer our members so many ways to advance their businesses through social networking events, special event sponsorships, informative lunch and learns, and the ever-popular after-hours mixers. Come see why we say we're the new wave of business here in Lake County.
Okay, so you opened up the Menards there.
Mm-hmm.
So when are you able to, because I'm not completely familiar. I know that you have to apply a department, you have to test, you have to get on the list. Like, how does that work? Like, because I'm sure you were itching to get in on a department somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. And back in those days, it was very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I would say much more difficult than what it is right now. We would say probably 10 times the number of applicants that you would see at a typical test that you're getting right now. Several hundred at the bare minimum.
Wow.
And so when I first started testing, after getting my degree, I was having a hard time getting on departments. So I wanted to sort of bridge the gap and maybe get in a civilian position. And I applied in 1997 to Grayslake as a community service officer. I had actually applied to Northbrook. and a couple of other departments, but Grayslake was one of the ones that I had applied to as a community service officer. I took a program at the College of Lake County when I was going through my degree for communities, directly for community service officers. So I was like, you know what? Let me see if I can get my foot in the door that way. I'll prove to them that I'm a really hard worker, and hopefully I can work my way up within a department. So that's what I did. And when I came here, at the time, I had actually interviewed with Chief Koletsos, who was the outgoing chief at the time, unbeknownst to me, and Mike Ellis, the village manager. And I remember I tell Mike Ellis this story all the time because
funny.
him and he interviewed me in 1997 in his conference room downstairs in the village hall
For a
community service officer job, civilian position, full-time civilian position.
That's awesome.
And to walk through the door and to be interviewed by the village manager and the chief of police, you're like, wow, this is off the charts. So, I did the best that I could, and they hired me after that, and that's how I started.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you basically from the bottom, is that if you have to say it that way, but
yeah.
But starting as that, and before we recorded too, you and I were talking about like work ethic, and if you want something, how to get it, and trying to teach the youth on how do you bridge the gap with our children of saying
Most important
you got to
thing.
go for it, right?
Absolutely.
But you're a good example of that. So how long were you a community service officer?
Not long, to be honest with you. Most of my opportunities came from here. I went to, I got to know several people, and they knew that I wanted to be a police officer. And one of the guys that I actually got to know from in Grayslake at one of the shops that we would typically go to with our cars, he introduced me to the chief of the McHenry County Conservation District.
Okay.
So he said, would you want to try this out? And I got an interview with the McHenry County Conservation District, and they hired me. I went through the process, and they sent me to the Illinois State Police Academy in early 1999. And I came back, and I worked in conservation, and it was a good job. I liked it, but it wasn't exactly the work that I wanted to do because I wanted to be a police officer. That was really my main goal. It was fun. It was great to be out in nature and all those other good things, but it really was just not. I wasn't helping the right people that I really wanted to do in the line of police work. So after I got out of the academy and I had a few months under my belt, one of the commanders from Grayslake had actually called me, and he said, "Do you think that you would want to come back and work for us part-time now that you graduated from the State Police Academy?" And I didn't think about it twice. I was like, "Oh, absolutely." I loved Grayslake. I loved the town. I loved the police department. And I was like, yeah, no question about it. There wasn't even a second thought in my mind.
That's awesome.
So I came back in June of that year, started working as a part-time officer, and in November of that year, they had actually rolled around and got to me full-time, and they said, would you be willing to take a full-time job in Grayslake? And like I said, this is what I wanted to do.
That's great.
Had my foot in the door, and they liked my work ethic, so I was on my way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was, what did you say, 90?
That was November of 99 when I got hired full-time.
Okay.
November 8th of 1999, exactly.
Wow.
Never forget that day. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Never forget that day. I was so happy to be here.
Yeah.
It was a great place to be. The people within the department were great. It felt like family, to be honest with you. And I just liked being there.
And very strange to say, that was 26 years ago.
26, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So from that day, November 8th, have you been in the Grayslake department ever since?
Absolutely, yeah.
Really?
I've never left.
Wow.
I worked, within a few years, I became an investigator. That was really where I kind of focused my attention. My interest went into investigations. I don't really know how, but once I fell into investigations, it was like that was really what I loved doing. I loved solving things. I loved, being able to think about things, and just being able to focus on stuff. We had really heavy caseloads. 30, 35 cases at a time.
Really?
And you really had to focus every single day about, I need to get this accomplished, I need to get this accomplished. And a lot of things would weigh on you. But as a patrol officer, you come in from day to day, and at the end of the day, everything kind of starts off new, day two.
Okay.
But as an investigator, that's not the case. Sometimes you have things that hang out for 6 months or 9 months, or it can take a little bit of time for things to develop. So you have to work a little bit harder to make things happen, and sometimes you get a break, sometimes you don't.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so give me an example. When you say that many investigations, give me an example of a couple things you'd be investigating, because that's it kind of blows me away when you say that much on your caseload. Give me a couple examples of things you'd.
So it could be burglary to motor vehicles. It could be fraud cases. There's a lot of theft crimes that occur that you might be looking into. It's really all over the map. It just depends. Could be our arson investigations.
Okay.
A lot of people think that the fire department does that, and they do to a degree, but a lot of times the police department pretty much takes over the investigation at a certain point, because that's the criminal nature of it, right? But yeah, and then shortly after that, I went into the Lake County Major Crime Unit, and I was assigned basically to work homicide investigations throughout the county, sometimes outside of the county. A few of them drag us down into Cook County sometimes.
Wow.
And I worked that for 7 years.
Did you like that?
I did. I became extremely exhausted after a while, because getting called out at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning all the time, it wears on you for a long period of time. And once you've done it, it's really hard. Of course, I was always on call 24/7 to the police department, but when you're also on call to another organization, and the expectation is that you're going to go there, and with the Major Crime Unit, it always seemed like we would work things extremely hard for 2 weeks, and you would work really, really long hours, especially in the beginning. The first 4 to 5 days, you would work nonstop. It was very often that we would work, a couple days straight, not even going home, not even taking a break. Some guys would, fall asleep in the office and just recover, and we'd continue working. But they wanted to get as much accomplished in the beginning as you could.
Sure.
So we would work really, really long hours on those cases. And
wow.
I loved it in the beginning, but like I said, the stress and everything else that wears on you, it's tough to do for a long length of time. You don't see too many guys that hang in there that long. A lot of them go in for a few years, and then they're done, because they kind of wear out.
Right. Well, because you have other parts of your life. Because I know you're a father.
Yeah.
The work-life balance of doing that must be really difficult.
Raising young kids, it was tough.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about that really quick. We'll switch a little bit. How many kids do you have? Ages?
I had 4 kids.
Oh my gosh! You had 4 kids when you were doing that?
I had 2 at that time.
Oh my God!
I have one that's 25, a 23-year-old, and then I have a 16-year-old that's turning 17, and a 9-year-old.
Hey!
So I am all over the map.
I got an 8-year-old and a 20-year-old.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a 17-year-old.
Yeah, absolutely, very similar.
Wow. Yeah. Nice work. We really thought that one through.
Yeah, I had one at 4 years old, and I was thinking, what did you do wrong? I don't know how I'm going to keep up with this, but
hey,
it's fun.
They say it keeps us young, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's funny, especially the little ones. I think that anybody would think that you and I are crazy. The little ones really keep you going, right?
Yeah, for sure.
The older ones are challenging,
for
and
sure.
then they keep us on our toes. All right, so you have 4 kids going on at the same time. Oh my goodness, yeah. So work-life balance to that, obviously, it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, tough.
So
tough.
Major crimes, and when do you stop doing that? Do you know approximately?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember. Like I said, I did 7 years in there.
Okay. So 7 years there.
Yep. At the time, I got promoted as sergeant, and I went back to the street for a short period of time, couple of years, and at that point, the Chief Larry Herzog, he actually promoted me to investigation sergeant. So I went back into the investigations unit. I took back the investigations unit, and I started supervising them. And I stayed in the investigations unit as a supervisor for a long, long period of time. Because like I said, that was my my niche, if you will. That was kind of what I was really, really good at. And that was one of the things that I did a lot of focus for. And I think he knew that, and he kind of put me in the right place to be successful.
Well, it has to be some satisfaction. Like, it must be really cool after investigation stuff when you actually get it done, right?
Oh, absolutely.
When you bring people to justice or find out what happens.
Especially the tough ones that when you first look at it and it doesn't seem like there's anything that can be done, and you start pulling a few strings and things start to unwind and you're able to be successful.
See,
it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that must be awesome.
Yeah.
And probably on the other side of that is when it's really frustrating,
Yep.
right? When you want to get something done, you just can't.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. That happens all the time.
Yeah, I bet.
More often than not.
We're taking a quick break just to say hello because everybody knows Nano, and Nano knows real estate. And actually, I believe that's the name of her Instagram page. So if you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or know somebody in the market for a home, contact Nano from Baird & Warner. She's a Grayslake girl helping out Grayslake people.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about your job for being here that long. We're talking 26 years of full-time, right?
Mm-hmm.
26 years of full-time.
Yeah.
You've got to see this town make a lot of changes, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So in your perception, like, what are the biggest changes that have made in Grayslake? Like, how have you seen things, whether good or bad? What's the big changes that you've seen?
The landscape has changed completely.
Yeah, you wouldn't recognize it if you drove
It's
through, right?
unbelievable. I mean, I am, going back 26 years, I remember the Carmen's Pizza, Pat's Pizza, you name it. The downtown was completely different.
Yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful now. The board and the mayors that have been in charge of just changing the way that the landscape is of the town is incredible. The plan that the village manager put together as far as like the route that they were going to go, it's amazing. It's a totally different place than what it was back in the day.
Yeah, I wonder if, like, Mike Ellis, like we were talking about Mike, like to see village manager, like, sit back 26 years ago and watch this slowly transform. And our trustees and these guys have been for a long time have such vision, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing to see what we have today, because I've obviously grown up here my whole life, but to see the way things change and more people in, right? And, I talked to a friend the other day that hasn't been here a long time. He said, "You guys have 2 high schools?"
2 high schools.
I'm like, yes, but that's been a long time.
2 high schools, but and you go back and you think, how many grade schools that we've got here? It's an incredible amount. I mean, we have a lot of public schools here in town. So yeah.
Wow. Okay, so how many officers are on staff right now?
Well, we're only down 1. We have 31 we're
31.
Designated 32.
Okay.
But we do employ about 5 part-time officers.
Okay.
And we use them to kind of fill in the gaps of where we need them.
Interesting. And obviously that has changed a lot over the years, obviously, with population and how big Grayslake is, how many people is. That's where you probably figure out how many officers you need, right?
Yeah, we're unlike many other towns, we don't really focus on population as much as what we would technically focus on call for service. Mm-hmm. So how much call for service volume that they have, how much, time that they have in their day to be able to handle calls. We do a lot of focusing on response times, making sure that they can get to where they need to quickly and efficiently. Like I said, it goes back to the whole customer service aspect.
Right.
We want to make sure that they're providing the best customer service possible.
Right.
To each resident, and that when somebody needs them there, they can be there.
Yeah.
So that's really more of how we come up with those numbers. It's not really, you have a lot of towns that they just say, oh, we've got 30,000 residents, so we must need 50 police officers. We don't do that. We try to be practical about the way that we actually employ people.
Right.
And it makes us a little bit unique, but at the same time more efficient, more effective.
Right.
And yeah.
Same reason that our town is not in debt, right?
Absolutely.
Because we do things the smart way, right? There's a lot of people making those decisions.
Absolutely. They do a great job of that.
Nice. So I was really interested. It's funny, I talked to a couple of friends and said that I was going to talk with you, and it's funny to see what people's questions would be for you.
Uh-oh.
And I said, you know what, Mo? I was like, what do I want to know? I don't know, like, what is I could probably guess on some, but like, most common problem Grayslake has, like, not crime-wise, but that you guys work on. Like, where do you spend most of your time?
Most common crime.
Yeah.
is probably people forgetting to lock their doors, their car doors, because most crimes are crimes of opportunity, and if you just lock your doors and lock up the things that you should,
Yep.
you probably would never fall victim to it. But you'd be really amazed at how many people either forget to lock their cars, or they'll leave their keys in their cars, or
My car was stolen out of my driveway.
it happens.
You're probably over there.
More often than not.
Car,
it does
keys
happen.
in the car. Just a bunch of kids running around, handle pulling, and jumped in the car.
They call it car shopping.
Car shopping.
Car shopping.
So we can avoid car shopping by locking your car and
Yes.
taking the keys out.
Absolutely, it's the number one. It's the easiest way, because most of the time they'll just walk down the street and check door handles and check to see if they can get into it, and if they can, they'll take some change or whatever else is in there, and
That's crazy. Yeah, but you got to understand, what kind of people are doing that, right?
Right.
So,
Yep.
yeah, so just make it a little bit more difficult.
Absolutely.
If you make it just a little bit hard.
Just
most
a
of them
little
won't
bit
do it.
harder. Crimes of opportunity. That's really
Crimes
a lot
of
of
opportunity. What comes after that?
it. Probably identity thefts, stuff like that. The things that people become victim to on the internet and stuff. We have a lot of those cases that come through, some of which we can deal with, some of which is really generated overseas, and we have to get federal authorities involved in it.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that things. So when somebody said to me, is Grayslake a safe place to live?
100%. Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
sure you have stats of all the things, but how do we compare to surrounding communities?
Really well, honestly. But we're very transparent. We do our crime statistics. We're actually very, very accurate with. We don't manipulate anything. We're extremely transparent. When we generate our data, we generate our data realistically. There's a lot of other places, I think, that tend to manipulate the things that they do a little bit, and they probably tweak it a little bit more toward their advantage.
Sure.
We don't do that. We are very transparent. We make sure that the stuff that we put out there is 100% accurate. But as far as what I would consider Grayslake, very safe community. Very safe community. Every community goes through the peaks and valleys of things that happen, and you get some transient crews that will come through town every now and again, and there'll be different things that they'll take advantage of. But for the most part, we're very comparable to every other place. I see a lot of them that hit some of were the safest communities, and Grayslake never really shows up on them. But it's very deceptive.
Right.
Honestly, a lot of those crime statistics are
Like the safest place to live in Illinois or
right.
whatever, right?
It's all relative, I think.
Right. One common question that I get too, and when people come by that I don't think people are completely aware of it, so I saw one of your officers driving around today, and Grayslake, Haynesville. So if you can just educate me and our listeners too of what you guys do with Haynesville.
Sure. Haynesville is a police contract that we've had, and we have literally incorporated Haynesville into pretty much everything that we do. Haynesville is a very comparable town to Grayslake, although small, a little bit less than probably 5,000 people. They're very similar to our community. And the great thing about us simulating Haynesville with the police contract is the fact that a lot of times the things that affect them affect us at the exact same time. So if they have something going on in their town, it's very possible that it translates into a lot of our neighborhoods. So we're able to solve a lot of crimes just because of the fact that we're policing Haynesville as well.
Sure.
And the communication between having all of that within one police department is excellent.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
The 32, 33 officers that we have, that's Haynesville and Grayslake.
Correct. What we do is we make Haynesville one beat. So we have 4 beats within Grayslake, 2 beats in the north, 2 beats in the south, and then we have a beat in Haynesville, which we consider beat 5. So that's just another district that we assign an officer to that they're responsible for during the period of the day, and they'll take calls out there.
Interesting. Because growing up, and then even into young 20s and everything, Haynesville was the speed trap.
Yeah.
Haynesville cops
Softball City, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
Yes.
The first time, my first Corvette I ever owned, we had to drive to Softball City, or we were doing something. We're but it was a convertible, so we couldn't have the sticker in the back window. So we're what's the chances we get pulled over? Sure enough, we got a quarter of a mile into Haynesville, and they would pull us over.
Right. right?
So all that has changed.
Very much known for that back in the day.
Yeah.
It's totally changed now. Yeah, it is no longer a speed trap, that's for sure.
It's funny to see how things gather like that, like are people just getting pulled over randomly.
Yeah, we have more of an education mentality. One of the former trustees was talking to me about this yesterday, and he said that, you know, there are other towns around us that are very, they do a lot of punishment, and you know, they stop cars to try to punish people, and we've taken things from the village board, and the village board's direction is that they prefer that we gain compliance through education.
Sure.
And to me, that's the best method to be able to get through to people. So that's our focus, is educating people. It's not punishing people. Honestly, the village board and the mayor and the village manager, they've never attempted to try to get us to become a ticket generating revenue town.
Right.
And
thank you.
We don't want to focus on that. Like we would rather gain compliance through education than anything else.
Sure.
And to me, that's the number one way that we can get through to people, because writing them a ticket, it really doesn't do a whole lot. I mean, that's why you don't see there's no red light cameras in Grayslake, because that's not what they're trying to focus on. That's not their goal.
Right. And that's the stuff that just ends up irritating people.
Absolutely.
Right. And then they lose respect, or they get pissed off at the police department because they have to spend money to do these things. So.
Yeah, we don't want to punish our residents. That's not the whole point of the police department. It's more of a education idea, philosophy.
Yeah. No, I love that. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, Chief, we're going to pause for 1 second. And you've listened to a couple shows, right?
Yes.
Okay, so enlighten us. What's your favorite show you've listened to? I'm going to put you on it. And you can't say Mike Ellis.
Mayor Davies, then.
All right.
I'll pick that one, because that was a really good one. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, you know, Elizabeth, we're really super happy to. Elizabeth, shout out to you, honey.
It was a great one.
Great to have in our town.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we, from village manager, chief of police, mayor, trustees, like everything. I think we were discussing that too, on like how solid that is to make a great town, and that we need all of that to make it work.
Oh, absolutely. It's really important. I mean, I remember some of the stuff that Mayor Taylor was a great mayor for a long, long period of time. And, you know, I tried to tell him that it was, for some of the people within the police department that have been there for a long period of time, it's sometimes uneasy to go from one leadership role when they're losing a mayor and they don't know what to expect, because a mayor does make a pretty big impact on the way operations are done. So sometimes it becomes a little bit uneasy, but with Mayor Davies coming in, it's really a pretty easy transition for them, because they know that the board has been very supportive of the police department from the beginning. They always have been. And they understand that with Mayor Davies taking over, that support is always there, that she's the exact same way. So
yeah, I love that, and I love that being a trustee, and she was involved in things 8 years before she becomes mayor. I think that's very helpful too.
Yes, yeah,
So it wasn't like we had a complete huge
Absolutely.
change, because she learned a lot from Rhett, and I know that a lot of the same philosophies of what we do.
Yeah, you have to have a lot of that experience coming through the board to be a good mayor, I think, and learn the leadership style. And of course, they all develop their own leadership style, but it's all about learning process.
Yeah, and I love the people that are in charge that are doing that. Not only are they very well educated and they're doing a great job, but they're actually really good humans too.
Yeah, for sure.
Which makes a big difference.
No doubt about it. No doubt.
Okay, so the reason we're going to pause is because you know that we do our thing we call the Grayslake Hot Seat.
The Grayslake Hot Seat is brought to you by Joe Velez at JPV Financial. It's often said that those who fail to plan are planning to fail. Joe Velez and his team at JPV Financial create unique financial plans that address some of the most difficult challenges that people might face as they get older. No matter what stage of life you're in, having a proactive financial plan can help navigate some of the difficult decisions you'll face, helping you live your life by design, not default. Securities and investment advisory service offered through Osaic Wealth, Inc. Member FINRA SIPC. Now for the Grayslake Hot Seat. Hey, thanks, Joe.
What was your first car you ever had?
Ford Fairmont, 1979.
Ford Fairmont, that's a big car, isn't it?
It was a station wagon, blue, turquoise blue.
Yes, that helps with the ladies too. I'm sure that was a great
Not
car.
so much.
Yeah, exactly.
Not so much.
First concert you ever attended?
Oh boy, that's a really good one. I'm going to say probably George Strait.
Nice.
Country music.
Nice. Do you know where that was at?
Rosemont Horizon.
Nice. When you first meet somebody, how do they impress you, or what impresses you about somebody?
Probably the way their parents, most likely.
Right. Which is very valid. Tell me something that you wish you learned sooner in life.
That's a good one.
Yeah, we can come back to it. If you like.
We'll come back to that one.
We'll do the really important ones. Have you ever eaten a roller dog from a gas station?
Yes.
Well,
regrettably.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say, well, who has?
You got to understand, I was a midnight shift officer for a while, so that roller dogs were common.
Yeah, no, that's good. See, I think more people should try it or not.
Right.
I mean, either way. Tell me about the second time. I usually say the second time that you were arrested. Tell me the second time you arrested me.
Second time I arrested you? Never.
I don't think we've ever, well, we probably have had something, but
never.
We'll talk about that after the. No, that's. Tell me somewhere you'd like to travel that you haven't been.
Somewhere that I'd like to travel that I haven't been.
Yeah.
Honestly, I just went down to the Caribbean last year on a cruise, and that was unbelievable. But I think someplace I'd like to travel to would be Alaska.
Alaska.
Yeah.
It's on my list too. I haven't been.
I'm a woodsy kind of person, and going out that way I think would be amazing.
Absolutely.
But I've never been there.
Absolutely. All right. Superpower. You get to pick one superpower. What do you choose?
X-ray vision.
X-ray vision.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm assuming for good.
Yes.
Good things,
It would be great.
Well, it could make for an investigator. That'd be.
Absolutely.
That would be really
it'd probably solve a lot of problems.
Oh my gosh. Okay, if you have to have a theme party at your house, what is the theme?
Oh. I don't know about that one.
All right, since we got stumped on that one, we're going back to.
I've had a lot of Halloween parties, so that's.
I love Halloween.
The costume parties, those were off the charts. They were a lot of fun.
And that's good. So we'll go with Halloween party.
Yep.
That's good. Okay, something you wish sooner in your life. You learned sooner in your life. It's tough.
It's a good question.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe how to save money.
Half the people
sooner, because you learn later in life that as you get closer toward retirement, you're like, I really wish I would have done X, Y, and Z, and if I would have done it when I was in my 20s, I would be in really, really good shape. But I waited too long, and then now you're in good shape, but it could have been better, right? So
yeah, I had somebody answer. I'm like, that's exactly compound interest.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we learn more about that, it would have been fantastic. Yeah, okay. I know I was going to ask you about roller dogs. I was really excited because I knew that if you're on shift that you have roller dogs wherever you can.
Oh yes.
All right, we're going to stop right there. Thank you for playing.
Absolutely.
So, other thing I want to know too is a more personal thing. So, you said you're an outdoorsy guy. Hunting,
yes.
Fishing.
Oh, absolutely, the whole 9 yards. Like I just came back from turkey hunting last week, so I see your Bigfoot hat. I'm a huge Bigfoot fan.
Yeah,
I'm a believer in Bigfoot.
Thank you.
People think I'm crazy. My kids think I'm crazy. I'm a huge Bigfoot fan.
All right.
There are certain things that happen out in the woods that there's no way that I could explain them, and I wouldn't even try.
Yeah. Okay, folks, you need to listen really closely right now and hear what the chief of police just said. See, because I'm not the only they think we're crazy, but.
I'm telling you.
The fact that they could question that it does exist with everything out there. I mean.
Exactly.
And you are a highly trained investigator.
Everything's possible.
There you go. See? I love that. Where do you do your turkey hunting at?
Up in Wisconsin. Yeah. I have, my dad passed away about 3 years ago, and I've got property up in Portage, Wisconsin.
Oh, Portage.
So, yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's great. And fishing also?
Yep. Yeah, we got a private pond up there, so.
Wow.
It makes it kind of nice, you go out and just spend a day. But I love to fish for northern pike. It's one of my favorite fish.
Where do you do that at?
Wherever I can go. When I was a kid, actually, one of my first fishing trips was into Canada, and the northern pike that we would catch up there were just amazing. It was phenomenal.
That's really
I
cool.
loved it. And I was hooked ever since then. No pun intended. But
I was going to say,
absolutely
nice,
hooked
good
ever
play.
since then.
That's cool. So hunting, fishing, any other big hobbies that you like?
I play a little bit of guitar, believe it or not.
Really?
I'm not professional.
Did you bring one with today to give us a
No, I
sample?
didn't, but I started learning guitar actually later on in life, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. Like it keeps me stimulated and keeps me going from time to time, and
It's
keeps
nice
your
to
mind fresh.
learn something new at our age,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
To do something. I think I'm going to start learning Spanish. I told somebody yesterday, like,
Yeah.
we had to learn something, right? Just
I went and got a guitar teacher, and I've been doing in-person lessons, and I told him,
Nice.
I said, you're going to be a miracle maker if you can actually teach me how to play guitar. So
And?
it's your goal, and he's been doing good.
So far, so good.
I'm
That's
still
great.
there. So
Excellent.
Hanging
How many
in.
years has that been now?
going on 2 years now.
Wow. Okay. Have you always wanted to do it, or you just decided one day?
I always wanted to play guitar. I was very musical when I was a kid. I played the drum set in band
Okay.
in Big Hollow, and I actually got a scholarship for Illinois Wesleyan University when I was in grade school to go there during the summertime to play in band. So, and I played the trumpet as well, so I played a lot of instruments. But I always wanted to play guitar, and I just never had. I always thought it was going to be too difficult for me, and I had so much going on in life that I would never be able to sit down and do that. So when I turned 45, I said, I'm just going to try to do this. Like, I need to jump in, see if I can try it. It'll keep me stimulated. Sure enough, it does. It's relaxing, and I have fun doing it.
That's really cool.
Not great at it, I'm not going to lie, but that doesn't matter.
But you have to do something, right?
Absolutely.
And that's really cool to
Absolutely.
do that. All right, so guitar. Any other hidden things we need to know about you? I think I'd like the hunting, fishing, playing guitar. I like that you said George Strait was your first one, too, so you're a country music fan.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Jason Aldean, love Jason Aldean, yeah, big country music fan.
Yeah, because I guess after, I don't know what it's like to drive around in a police car and be on patrol, and I'm sure you guys get to hang out and probably listen to a lot of radio or listen to a lot of things going on.
You tend to,
Yeah.
Tend to. Yeah.
I was just thinking about 30-some people on. So with that many people on, so like right now, how many officers are on the road?
Well, we have 3 investigators in the detective unit. We have an investigation sergeant. So during the daytime, we generally have more people. On the road, we typically have anywhere from 4 to 5.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, so I want to touch on a couple sensitive subjects that you and I have talked a little bit about, but most of the people, the demographic of people that mostly listen to the show are around our age, right? Who typically have high school students, things like this. Because you get to see all this stuff, right? I want you to give some advice to parents, kids, anybody listening. Like, the biggest thing for me is how do we keep our kids safe, right? So maybe advice you can give to parents, kids, like how do we keep them safe?
I think the biggest thing is just paying attention all the time, making sure that you don't get checked out. Sometimes raising kids can be a grind, and you're really going through the motions, and you're not really paying attention to the things that they're necessarily doing on a regular basis. They go off in their room. I know my teenagers, they go off in their room and they disappear, and you haven't heard from them in hours, if not days, and you don't know really what they're doing or what they're getting involved in. I think if you just make sure that you're always checked in and that you know what's happening, that's probably the biggest key.
Most people have no idea what to do with their aging loved one who needs help. Well, there is a solution. A company that provides care and assistance to make your loved one feel right at home. At Right at Home, their mission statement is to improve the quality of life for those they serve. They offer extensive services: personal and companion care, safety supervision and transportation, fall prevention, dressing and bathing assistance, medical reminders, meal prep, hospice support, ambulation support, stroke recovery, Parkinson's support. The list goes on and on and on. If you have an aging loved one that needs help, call Right at Home. Most people prefer to age in their home rather than moving to an assisted living or nursing home. Right at Home can make this happen. Contact Right at Home at rightathomenlc.com or give them a call, 847-984-0103. Now back to the show.
How do we know what's going on, especially these days? We talk about
It's
this
tough.
too. We have Snapchat. We have all these
tough.
sneaky apps that I hate, that people, the teenagers communicating with each other, where things either disappear Or other things? Should I be checking my daughter's phone? When you say checking in and being present, like about these things, like, do you check their phones? Do you do, like, I'm sure every parent is different, right?
You know, I kept the Life 360 app on my phone up until the point when my kids were able to pay for the phones themselves. So, you know, until that point, like, it was, you had to make sure that you got something on there monitoring it, you know. Yeah. And I always told them that technically it's my phone, I guess, you know, it belongs to me. So anything that you do,
I've never said that.
I'm responsible for it.
Right. Yeah, and other things from what's the other app, the Bark app, which notifies the parents like all the things they're doing. But
it's scary. Technology's gotten so good that sometimes it's overwhelming, but you at least have to be up on top of it and make sure you're paying attention to it all the time.
So would I be correct in saying that technology is probably one of the biggest threats to our youth right now?
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. AI, especially when it first came out, was a big. It's calmed a little bit, but it's still on the horizon. AI, I think, is like constantly developing.
Yeah. What kind of stuff with AI?
Well, you know, just like making videos of things that out of the blue, those types of things.
Well, you can fake anything on
you can literally do anything these days, yeah, and it didn't occur, you know, but to you or me, we would know no different.
Right.
It's scary technology. You know, technology is getting so good that you can pretty much do anything with it.
Wow. So, checking in on your kids, making sure, I mean, obviously their devices is a huge thing.
Devices are huge.
And I worry about what's going to happen in the future, especially with, you know, what age, you know, kids are getting phones and how, you know, how they're. My 8-year-old, you know, he wants to be on everything. He wants to do stuff.
8 seems to be about the average age these days.
It's crazy.
That people are getting their kids' phones.
Yeah.
So
we used to say that, you know, well, like my son Max is 20 now. Like as soon as he started, we walk into Frederick or, you know, having travel baseball, like somewhere where we're waiting to get, like, so you can communicate. Like, I think the burner phones or something you could just call like 4 numbers or just text, right? Yep. Without all those crazy apps for young ones to keep them safe, right? So we know where they're at.
And these days it's hard to take YouTube off of a phone. I mean, it's almost impossible to be able to get rid of it without them being able to pull it back on there. In the beginning, there were a lot of different types of technology, a lot of different phones that you could use that were more related for kids, but that it's not so much like that anymore. A lot of these iPhones and Android phones that's just the wave of the future.
Yeah. Well, growing up, because you and I are very similar, I was born in 72.
74?
Yeah, 74. So when we went to high school, so where'd you go to high school, like Grant?
Grant High School.
Okay, so Grant, I was at Carmel. Like, we didn't have officers at schools. We didn't have, like, things.
They locked us in. They locked the doors.
Exactly. And I think we had a hell of a lot less problems at that time, right?
Yeah. If there was a fire, I mean, you had to have somebody at the door to help you get out.
Right. That's one way to look at it.
It's so true.
That's crazy. Yeah, and it's funny to see, like, how things go. But those are also the days where if you screwed up, your parents would, you know, we got punished, right?
Yeah, they knew about it right away, and it seemed like we had more freedom because I know that I spent a lot more time outside than what my boys do. That's for sure.
Right.
They spend a lot more time indoors than what I ever did. Right. When I came home, I remember it might have been 10 minutes inside the house. My parents had to beg me to come in just to do your homework after school or something like that. I was always out playing football, playing baseball, you name it. I was out there doing it.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it just seems like they spend more time indoors than anything else.
You push them so much to get out, or they get bored, and then they want to come in. They get bored and want to come in and play on their PlayStations or whatever. And you're like, no. I lived on Burton Street growing up, and we would get home. You change your clothes from school, and then we would be off playing in the manor or wherever we were, and you just had to be home, you know, for dinner time or whatever things. But there was more. It's funny that they think they have this freedom through the devices, but we had a lot more freedom.
Oh, absolutely. A lot more experience as a younger kid. We had a lot more experience back then.
Right. And a lot more experience with human interaction.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
We actually ask girls out to their face rather than giving them our snap code or whatever they do.
For sure.
But that's interesting. Any other like to keep? We talked about like locking your cars, doing things like that, monitoring your children, making sure the phone's on. Anything else a community member can hear this and say, other ways to keep our town safe, anything like maybe if it's completely obvious to you that they can do?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of things you can. technology is great to a point, but you can also use technology to improve the way that you're doing things. Like a lot of these Ring doorbells nowadays, we're using them successfully really, really often with our community connections and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think surveillance is almost the wave of the future. Really, if you don't have it, you're kind of behind the times, right? So I think that using technology toward your advantage to make sure that you're always staying ahead of things is probably the best way to do it. And we do that with the police department very often. We try to use technology to supplement everything that we do, and it helps us even reduce the amount of officers that we necessarily need, because technology will do so much stuff for us that we don't necessarily need to add as many people as what we would back in the day.
Sure.
So I think, technology is probably one of the bigger things that you could do to try to use it to be safe.
Sure. Do you think that because you got to be around before the Ring doorbells, have break-in things decreased because of these things? Because every house has a camera on it. Oh, it is
not? No,
not?
I don't think so.
Really?
Amazingly, I don't think so. Even what we would call porch pirate thefts.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to deter them. I don't know why. It really doesn't. It gives us a tool to be able to use so that we can follow up on things for sure.
Sure.
But it doesn't seem to cut down on the number of them necessarily.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I would think that would change dramatically, right?
Yeah.
It just shows you how stupid people are.
Hey, sometimes they're just willing to do it.
It makes the world go round.
Sometimes they're just willing to do it.
Yeah. I wouldn't think about I love when you say stuff like that, because I even think like, how to secure your house, how do you keep your kids safe, how do you keep your home safe, from people that steal or all the things. Anything else besides that? Let's say, obviously calling 911 is like a big deal.
Yeah.
There also is a non-emergency number at the police department.
Yep.
That's very important for people to know, I think, too, right?
Yep, there is.
Yeah.
847-223-2341. That's our non-emergency number that you can call to get directions on anything. I think one of the things that people should keep in mind is the fact that when you're using cell phones, and some of the times those things are directed towards cell phone towers, they're not always, like a lot of people will think that, I'm in the village of Grayslake, so when I'm calling it is necessarily going toward, the Grayslake dispatch center. That may not necessarily be true, because things are bouncing around, they get picked up by different areas, so don't always necessarily think that you're not going to get transferred to where you need to be. So providing information that's accurate to the dispatchers right off the start is probably a pretty valuable tool to them.
Right. Telling you where you're located,
Absolutely.
Right? Like first things first.
Absolutely.
Name, where you're at.
Awareness, being aware of where you are. We get a lot of times people call in, whether it's a car accident or a crime in progress, and they won't necessarily recognize the location of where they're at. They'll have to give landmarks or something, and we try to piece things together. But
wow,
a lot of kids these days they've grown up just purely on GPS technology and putting things instead of learning streets. And I'll tell my son or daughter or whatever, it's on Route 120. Where?
I know.
Really? I have to give you an address. And
yes, north of Washington Street.
It is crazy that the level of which they've relied on the technology has really decreased the social awareness of where they're at all the time.
Right. Yeah. Show them a map. Try to figure that one out.
We didn't have that
stuff. How about a Rand McNally
to
take over to figure things out?
When you started driving at 16, it was a challenge.
Yeah, when you had to figger things out.
Yep, you better know where you're at.
Yeah, I think common sense was a little more common then, but maybe not. I don't know from some of the stuff I did personally. But that's funny. Let's see. And one more thing, technology, how it shapes the the community, the world that we live in.
It's changed it completely.
Wow. Okay, I wouldn't like. That's funny to think of that. And when I like the non-emergency number, I was thinking of other valuable information. If somebody's saying that they take away from this episode to say, all right, I know when to call 911. I know when to call, non-emergency. I did want to touch one other thing for people's safety, because I know that we just had a tragedy here in Grayslake. Lost almost our age man, right? So many people are making deals on Facebook Marketplace. So many people are doing let's say we'll just say I'm selling my car, right? And I have somebody come. Where do we meet? Where do you do a transaction? Do you have people come to your home? Everybody's selling everything. So what is the safest way to do it?
Well, the safest way to do it is probably at the police department. We do have video surveillance all the time. There may not necessarily be somebody at the police department all the time, but in general, for the vast majority of time, there's somebody there. So I would always recommend that people do it in the lobby of the police department or in front of the police department if it's going to be a transaction in a car. Most people, if you're going to meet them at the police department, they're not really going to think about doing something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Hopefully to deter them from doing
Absolutely. They don't know any different anyway. And like I said, the vast majority of the time, there's always somebody at the police department to be able to handle anything that needs to take place.
Right.
It's very rare that there isn't an officer in the police department at any given point in time, either doing a report or working on some administrative task. But so I would say that it's probably the safest place. Outside of that, I would say any place in public. That's typically where I would do it. Okay. Just somewhere where there's a lot of people around that anybody would be persuaded from doing something that they wouldn't ordinarily do.
Right. And I after reading the article that came out yesterday about things, we won't mention details on that, but I'm 52 years old. Mm-hmm. I'm a man, right? I can have somebody come to my house and make an exchange, right? Because what could happen to me, right? I'm a tough guy. No, but I think everybody needs to listen to that because
absolutely.
I don't think of it. I should change the way I do things like that.
It can happen to anybody.
Right.
It can happen to anybody. And one of the big things too with Facebook Marketplace is you got to get a good feel for who you're dealing with. And if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. Right. So then you got to will caution. Always do research on the people that you're dealing with. Mm-hmm. You can look into their reviews. You can do a lot of different things to. Google will give you a litany of different things tell if you run people's names or anything like that. Most legitimate people, I do a lot of dealings on Facebook Marketplace. Mm-hmm. If you ask me something, I'm going to tell you something legitimately, right? I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it for you, right. And it's not going to. You're going to know whether or not it's correct. So you should get a pretty good feeling for it.
Right. And making sure they haven't been on Facebook for a week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I mean, if it doesn't look right, don't do it. Just don't do it. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Because we just did a car purchase and, looking through everything. And some of these people, I mean, you see
mm-hmm.
it's so blatant, like, and then you go on a thing and you see the same pictures of the same car for sale in Cincinnati.
Lots of scams on there. Lots of scams.
So be careful with that.
Absolutely.
And then with those transactions, any recommendations on how to pay for stuff? Let's say I'm going buying a car. Do you bring cash to a transaction? Do you get a cashier's check? What's the safest way to do that?
For me, I typically do bring cash most of the time.
Yeah.
It depends on what you're going to be dealing in. Like if it's a large volume of cash, of course, getting a cashier's check or a money order or something like that.
Right.
Much, much safer, a much better idea.
Yeah.
I tend to stay away from the digital stuff just because I'm not that good with it anyway. So, I don't really like the Venmo or Zelle or people can reverse charges and do all kinds of goofy stuff like that I don't really want to have any business dealing with.
Right.
But I don't typically, like if I'm going to do a transaction, I won't carry the money on me right away.
Yeah.
I'll make contact with the person, chat them up a little bit, talk to them for a little while and figure out what they're all about. Most people will be willing to have a conversation with you. I think that's the way life is if they're legitimate.
Right.
And so I'll go talk to them for a little while and figure out a little bit about them, and then if I like what they have to offer, then I'll go get my money and we'll make a deal. But
it's terrible that we live in a world that we have to worry about that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
When you just wonder whether you're buying a car or a washing machine or whatever you're buying, right?
Absolutely.
Or picking up a kid's bike, that you have to even worry about anything like that. Thank you for that, because that's I think simple reminders to people just before what you said I love, because I use it with kids all the time. Be aware of your surroundings, right? Just use logic and understand that everybody in this world is not a good person, right?
Yeah. I mean, I taught driver's education.
Oh, God, you're crazy.
Recently, okay? I won't name names. I won't name the company. I'm sure they would appreciate it, though.
Right.
Give them a little prop. But I did. A couple of years ago, I started teaching driver's education. I'm not doing it anymore. I stopped doing it when Mayor Taylor appointed me as the chief. But I really, truly enjoyed it. I liked getting, but a lot of that for me was about educating them about different things, not just with driving, but awareness. What you're doing, backing into parking spaces. If a lot of times you see police officers backing into parking spaces, and you think that, it's because it's the ease of convenience of getting out. You realize that they back their personal cars in the parking spot. It's not just the ease and the convenience of getting out of the parking spot. It's also about social awareness. They can see things coming at them. Like it's all about a lot of that stuff. And I tried to portray a lot of that stuff to the younger kids that were coming up through the driver education program, because I don't think that they get a lot of that. They just see a lot of the normal stuff.
Right. I never knew why. I guess I just never thought about it, right?
If you look at it, like I said, most police officers, they tend to back into almost everything that they do. They'll back into a parking spot regardless of where they're at.
Yeah, you can see
everything. The vast majority
of
them do.
I think maybe it's just I'm too stupid to already trust everybody too much that everything is going to be fine. Or if something happens, there's nothing I can do about it anyway. But I'm going to start backing into spots.
Yep.
So as we get towards the end here, Jeff, I want to make sure that we cover some things that you want the community to know, because I appreciate your service to this town. I mean, it's 26 years.
Thanks.
You've got to see a lot of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
All kinds of stuff, from floods and little tornadoes touching down to all kinds of parades downtown, or marches and all
fish
things.
In the middle of Washington in '83.
Isn't that crazy?
You name it. Yeah, it's been there. It's been a wild ride, for sure.
Yeah.
Tornadoes ripping the roof off the central campus, and
it's like just to keep everything together. Like being an officer and being an investigator and doing all these things, you do take a lot of your time. And we talked about, there's a time you have a dangerous job, right? I mean, you put yourself out there to make sure that our community is safe. So I appreciate that big time as well.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, anything else the community needs to know? I'm sure you have a ton of things, but
I think that my big message for them is that the police department's always there for you. They're ready to do anything that they can at any given moment in time, and I just want to reassure the public that the police department is always there, and like I said, our big effort, our big goal is customer service. They always want to do the best job that they can for you, and I appreciate everything that they do on a regular basis, because they work very, very hard on a regular basis. They work night shift, they work long hours, and the level of commitment that they have is extraordinary. We have a lot of events that go on in town, which is what makes Grayslake, I think, one of the unique communities, is our ability to be able to draw people into the downtown area, our parades, St. Patrick's Day event, the Grayslake Days, all of the stuff that we do, and they're always committed to everything that they do on a regular basis to make sure that the citizens of Grayslake are safe and that it's a safe place to be, even when we're bringing in a large volume of people, and it might be tough for them. It doesn't matter. They will always be there. And I can't appreciate that enough from them. They put in a lot of time. They put in a lot of effort. And, I just think that I want people to understand that the level of commitment that the police officers have on the Grayslake Police Department is extraordinary. That the men and women that work there are just phenomenal. And the citizens of Grayslake deserve the best, and I think that they have the best right now, personally.
Very well said.
Thanks.
So wave to your police officers, say hello to them, say thank
Absolutely.
you to them, and
they get that on a regular basis, which is extraordinary.
It's great, right?
We appreciate it so much.
Yeah. My little guy used to be like, "Oh my God, it's the police," whatever. I'm like, dude, they're your friends unless you're a criminal.
Absolutely.
I don't think he was a criminal at 3, but you never know these days. They get started early, right?
You never know.
But hey, thank you, the department, everybody, for what you're doing.
Thanks, Dave.
This village of Grayslake, it takes, we would say it takes a village, but
Yep.
all the way down, everybody works together, and it's so pleasant to see. So I appreciate everything you're doing.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
All right. Thank you for your time. Grayslake, wherever you guys are, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. So that way, every week, you'll be alerted of a new guest from Grayslake. So this is episode 130-something. So, and we're just getting warmed up. Somebody said we're going to run out. And I was like, you guys are out of your mind. So hit the subscribe button. I really think it helps build community. And listen to the people you don't know. I think that's one of the biggest messages I can give. And as we always end, do me a favor. Get out there, do 1, 2 random acts of kindness. We never know what our friends are going through, our family, or even stranger on the street. So give them a smile, hold the door, say thank you to your cashiers, wave to a police officer, whatever, because we never know what people are going through. And kindness spreads like wildfire. So do your part. Be a good human. All right. Thank you, Grayslake. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Grayslake, we'll see you next Tuesday, everybody.